Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with number 6 in the series The Most Fantastic Chess Moves Ever Played. And this one was played by the gentleman in this picture, the Bulgarian Grandmaster Ivan Cheparinov. Cheparinov is a very strong Grandmaster, rated around 2700, but he's mostly famous for being Veselin Topalov's longtime second. Topalov was the FIDE World Champion from 2005. His girlfriend is another world champion, Antoaneta Stefanova, also from Bulgaria. She held the Women's World Championship title from 2004 to 2006. So Cheparinov is surrounded by world champions. In earlier installments of this series, I mostly showed games that were played quite a while in the past. But this is a recent game. Cheparinov played this move in this game in the Gibraltar tournament, which was held at the start of 2018. You can find the link to the playlist of this series with the first 5 videos in the description box of this video. Ivan Cheparinov was black in this game. He played Ivan Pichot, an Argentinian Grandmaster, and it was played in round 5 of the Gibraltar Masters on the 27th of January 2018. Let's have a look at the game. E4 from Pichot, or Pichot, not sure how to pronounce his name. C5 from Cheparinov, the Sicilian. Knight f3, d6, d4, c takes, knight f6, all very standard. Knight c3, protecting the pawn on e4, a6, the Najdorf variation, bishop g5, e6, f4, h6, kicking the bishop back to h4, and now queen b6, the poisoned pawn variation of the Najdorf Sicilian. And Cheparinov mentioned afterwards that he had seen that Pichot had not had many games with this variation, suggesting that he might not have been well prepared to face the poisoned pawn. I also need to say that many of the comments that I'm using here in this video are from Simon Williams, Grandmaster Simon Williams, in his analysis in the magazine New in Chess. The poisoned pawn is about this pawn on b2, which will be taken by black. Queen d2 is the main move in this variation, and indeed Cheparinov took on b2. This is one of Bobby Fischer's favorite openings, so Bobby Fischer would have been happy to see that it's still played at the highest level. Rook b1, and the queen only has one move. Queen a3. e5, a critical move, opening up the position. And this move has been played many times before. Cheparinov took, the f-pawn took back, and now knight fd7 is a very sensible move that has been played hundreds of times in this position, taking a knight out of the attack. But Cheparinov chose another move which has been played before, g5, counter-attacking white's bishop. Those two pieces were taken, e takes f6 and g takes h4. And now bishop e2, and Simon Williams calls this a very interesting position. The black pawn on h4 gives black additional tactical opportunities. Queen a5, the black queen is brought back into the game and can now consider transferring to some useful dark squares on e5 and g5, as Simon Williams writes. Pichot castled. And h3, a nice move, because now the white king will also become somewhat exposed. The black king is already quite exposed there on e8. Bishop f3, putting the bishop on a beautiful diagonal. And here you can take on g2 to expose that white king. But then rook fe1 is the move, and white's pieces are ready to pounce. As Williams writes, lots of white's pieces are now aimed at the black king. So Cheparinov did not go for h takes g2, he played knight d7, putting that knight into the game. King h1 was played here, a sensible move out of this diagonal. Often we see the king go to h1 in this type of positions. Another option would have been knight d5, very spectacular, giving away the queen, but if you take the queen, you get checkmated. It's a nice variation. Knight c7 check, king d8 only move, knight d takes e6 check, f takes only move, knight takes, king e8 only move, and you see the checkmate move. White has not many pieces left, but bishop h5 is a beautiful checkmate. So that after knight d5, and why did Pichot not play it? Well, he might have seen queen c5 instead of taking the queen on d2, and as Williams writes, it's not clear how white should continue. So this doesn't work. So back to the game after knight d7, king h1 was played. Knight e5 from Cheparinov, attacking the bishop on f3. And now bishop takes b7 leads to very complex variations. Williams gave many of them in his article, but I won't go into it here. Rook fe1 was the choice from white. He did not take on b7. Cheparinov took the bishop, g takes, and now queen g5 is a safer option according to Simon Williams. But Cheparinov chose rook g8 instead. And now we get fireworks. Knight takes e6, a piece sacrifice was played by Pichot. He was already short of time and goes in for the kill. But the tactics are not quite there, as Simon Williams writes. Queen d3 would have been a good alternative, with the idea of f3, f4, f5. After which any result is possible, as Grandmaster Williams writes. But after knight takes e6 from the game, it becomes very tactical. You have to take the knight, f takes e6, and there rook takes b7. That was the idea behind that knight sacrifice. A great shot, and that was the point of the previous move. Banking on an attack on the light squares, deflecting this bishop. If the bishop takes, then this pawn is no longer protected and the rook can take it. That's the idea. Black now has to be very careful. Mate in 1 is threatened. The threat here is f6 to f7, and that will be checkmate. And there's only one way out, and Cheparinov found it. I read several commentaries, and the main views were that only an elite grandmaster would have found this move. If you have not seen it yet, you can look for it. It's not easy to find. It's one of the most fantastic chess moves ever played. And it is rook in g1 check. Another deflecting move. We saw this rook taking on b7 to deflect the bishop. And now this rook g1 is deflecting the rook. But it's a lot more complex than that. Cheparinov had to see many variations. The first thing we need to look at is why did Cheparinov just give away his rook there on g1? Why did he not just take that rook on b7? Because black has now a mating attack with his pieces, but white is quicker. Rook takes e6 check, because the bishop is no longer protecting that square. King f7, queen d7 check, king g6, and f7 check, and this is winning for white. The engine is on +6. So that's why Cheparinov could not play bishop takes b7. So what is the point of the move that was played in the game? Rook g1 check. Well, firstly, it's deflecting the rook. And if that rook takes on g1, then there is bishop takes b7. The white rook is deflected and white has no attack. Black is just a piece up here. And the second point of rook g1 check is that it frees up the g8 square for the king, as we'll see in a variation later. The rook was just a mere hindrance on g8. It blocked that escape square for black's king. And also rook g1 check was the only move. All other moves were losing here. And rook g1 check is the only move that wins. And that gives it some extra value, which makes it into indeed one of the most fantastic chess moves ever played. So rook takes g1 doesn't work. And Pichot took with the king. King takes g1. But now we see a second point of luring the king to g1, because now there is queen c5 check. An important move, because if you don't play that but play bishop takes b7 straight away, then white can achieve a draw. Rook takes e6 check, king f7, queen d7 check, and yes, you can now go to g8. The rook is no longer there, But then there is f7 check, and if you go to h7, then there is queen takes b7, and queen e4 check is in the position, and black is not better. And if after f7 check you go to a dark square, g7 or h8, then there is queen d4 check, and this game will end in a draw. So back to the position after king takes g1. As I said, queen c5 check is crucial to get to the queen on that square, so that later there is no queen d4 check options in that variation we just saw. The queen is now covering that square. So Cheparinov not only saw rook g1 check, but also this very important follow-up. King stepped aside, and only now did Cheparinov take the rook. And rook takes e6 check came, king f7, queen d7 check, we saw that variation a few times, but now king g8. That's why the rook had to move away from there, and there is no more f7 check and then queen d4 in the position. Taking on b7 is not good for white. It will not save white taking that piece, because there is queen f2. You can also take the knight instead, but queen f2 decides the game straight away because of the mate threat on g2. Black is winning here. So after king g8, f7 check was tried by white, and now it's still important that you go to the right square with black. Going to h8 does not work, leads to a draw because of queen takes b7, and if you then play queen f2 with that checkmate threat, then it's actually white who will win this game of chess, because of rook g6 covering the g2 square, and there is no defense against rook g8 and queen e4 checkmate. White wins here. So that was after king h8, and then queen takes b7, and then queen f2. Black can still save himself by playing queen g5, covering the g6 square. White then has the only move f4 to cover the g2 square with the queen, and this game is about equal. So back to the game. f7 check was played, so you cannot go to h8 as we just saw. Cheparinov found the right move. He went to g7, and black is winning. Queen d3 was played by Pichot, and white still has a threat. It's still not over. Queen g6 followed by queen g8 checkmate is now the threat. And Cheparinov found the right reply. Queen g5 covering the g6 square. Queen d4 check was the last move from white, because he resigned after king takes f7, king taking that pawn. There's nothing more to play on for white. His rook is hanging. There's a checkmate threat in one with queen g2. There's also a checkmate threat in one with bishop takes f3. And you have one more check, queen d7. But after king g8, that king is hiding safely. There are no more checks, and white will get checkmated. Hope you enjoyed this game. Beautiful game from Ivan Cheparinov, and especially that move rook g8 to g1 check was absolutely wonderful. I hope you agree. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel. Please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. You also may want to check out my Chess to Progress channel. The link is in the description box. One of the things I do on Chess to Progress is analyze viewers' games. Viewers send me their games by email and I analyze them for the channel. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.